We live in a noisy world, a world that tells you how you should feel, how you should dress, what you should want, and how fast you should get it. And amidst all that noise, we get lost. We lose our calm. We lose control. We are swept away by expectations, judgments, comparisons, and without realizing it, we are fighting a war against ourselves. A silent, daily, exhausting war. Many think that inner peace is something that is found, as if it were out there, waiting to be discovered in a book, in a spiritual retreat, or in an Instagram account with nice quotes. But no, inner peace is not found, it is built. And to build it, you must first destroy. Destroy habits, destroy ideas, destroy thoughts that have been living inside your head for years, telling you that you are not enough, that you need more, that you have to be someone different to deserve tranquility. Stoicism is not a philosophy of nice quotes. It is a way of life. And in this life, if you do not learn to master your mind will master you. The good thing is that you do not need to be a Greek sage to start. You just need to be fed up with living with anxiety, fed up with reacting impulsively, fed up with pretending that everything is fine when inside you are falling apart. If you are already there, then this video is for you. We are going to talk about 8 Stoic lessons that will not only open your eyes, but if you practice them honestly, can completely transform the way you face life. 8 deep cuts, one by one, to uproot everything that takes away your peace. This is not going to be comfortable, but the truth rarely is. Let's begin. 1. Master the fire before it consumes you. Imagine you have a lit candle inside your chest. It's small, but it burns with strength. That candle is your temperament, your anger, your frustration, and like any flame, it can give warmth, or it can destroy everything. If you take care of it, it can be a source of energy. But if you neglect it, if you let the wind of life feed it uncontrollably, it burns you from the inside. And the worst part is, many times you don't even realize you're already on fire until you ruin everything. Anger is not the problem. What destroys you is what you do with it. Stoicism doesn't tell you to become an emotionless robot. It doesn't ask you to stop feeling. It asks you to learn to govern what you feel. Because whoever does not master their fire lives burning everything in their path. Relationships, opportunities, moments that will not return. Seneca wrote, "Anger, an acid that can do more harm to the vessel in which it is stored than to anything on which it is poured." And he was right. Because many times while you explode, life goes on. People go on. The world doesn't stop to give you the right. You wear yourself out, you ruin yourself, and others simply continue on their way. So, who loses in the end? Think about it. How many times have you reacted without thinking and then regretted it? How many times did you say things you didn't feel just because you were upset, blinded by a fleeting emotion? How many times did you ruin an entire day for something that wasn't worth even 5 minutes of your energy? Fire is treacherous. It disguises itself as justice, as pride, as wounded dignity. But many times it is nothing more than ego. Ego that cannot tolerate feeling attacked, ignored, contradicted. And while you feel right, your inner peace goes out the window. The first step to achieving it is simple but brutal. You have to learn to stop. In Stoicism, there is a key principle, the interval between stimulus and response. That small pause, that instant where you choose how to respond instead of reacting, is where your freedom begins. If you don't master that moment, you don't master anything. It's not about repressing yourself. It's about understanding that not everything deserves a response, and much less an explosion. That many times remaining silent is wiser than speaking. That breathing before acting is more powerful than any shout. Practicing this is not easy. You're going to fall 1,000 times. You're going to ignite 1,000 times more. But with each conscious attempt, your fire ceases to be an enemy and begins to become a tool. You learn to use it to move, not to destroy yourself. Inner peace does not come from external control. It comes from internal mastery, and that mastery begins with the wildest emotion of all, rage. So the next time you feel something inside you wants to explode, remember this, that flame can warm you or it can kill you. You choose. Master the fire before it consumes you. 2. You don't need to win, you need peace. A warrior can win 1,000 battles and still feel empty inside. He can raise his sword, defeat enemies, receive applause and recognition, and yet not sleep peacefully. Because there is a battle that does not appear on the battlefields, but consumes more than any other, the one waged against oneself. This one is not one with strength or pride. It is only one with peace. From a young age, we are taught that we must win, be better, compete, be on top. Always comparing ourselves, always trying to prove that we are worth it. As if life were an eternal tournament where every step must be a visible victory. But that mentality, which seems to drive us, is often the root of our anxiety. Because when you only seek to win, everything becomes a threat. Every disagreement is an enemy. Every criticism is an attack. Every mistake is a catastrophe. Stoicism teaches another way of looking at things. A harder way, but wiser. It's not about being the strongest. It's about being the most aware. The one who can look chaos in the eye and not lose balance. The one who can choose peace over the impulse to be right. How many times have you entered into discussions that are worthless just out of pride? How many times have you wasted time, energy, mental health, trying to prove to someone that you were right? And what did you gain from that? Nothing, just more noise in your head. Epictetus said it clearly, if someone beats you in a discussion, let them win. You know who you are. But that's hard, isn't it? Because our ego wants to speak, wants to shout, wants the world to recognize it. But that ego, which seems to defend you, often sabotages you the most. You don't need to win. You need peace. Victory is not in crushing the other, but in not letting yourself be dragged down by what does not add up. The real triumph is not reacting to every provocation. It's saving your energy for what really matters. It's understanding that not everything deserves your response, and much less your anxiety. Every time you choose peace instead of fighting, you are breaking the cycle. You are training your mind to stop living defensively. You are learning to live with purpose, not with pride, because pride applauds you in the moment, but then leaves you alone with fatigue. Peace, on the other hand, may not make noise, but it supports you when everything falls apart. And beware, this does not mean that you keep quiet in the face of injustice or that you are submissive. It means that you choose your battles, that you know when to speak and when to be silent, when to act and when to let go. It means that you no longer need to beat anyone to feel good about yourself. Practicing this is a daily challenge. There will be days when you will want to shout. You will want to have the last word. But if in those moments you breathe, think, and choose calm, you are winning. You are defeating the only enemy that really matters, that internal impulse that drags you into unnecessary conflict. So the next time you feel like you're going to explode with pride, remember this. There are battles that are won by not fighting. You don't need to win, you need peace. 3. Break the invisible chain of what will they say. There are prisons without bars, without cells, without guards, and yet they keep millions of people trapped for life. One of the most common, quietest, and most destructive is the prison of what will they say. It doesn't make noise, it's not visible, but it's there, tightening around your neck every time you do something for yourself and not for others. You live conditioned, not by who you are, but by how you want to be seen. Before you speak, you think about how it will sound. Before you dress, you think about how you will be seen. Before you decide, you think about what they will say. And so, you lose yourself, slowly. You become a manufactured, polished version, controlled by others' opinions. And the worst part is that this version will never be enough. Because no matter what you do, there will always be someone who criticizes, someone who points out, someone who talks. Marcus Aurelius put it bluntly, everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. If you base your worth on others' perception, you will never have peace, because that perception changes with the wind. Today they applaud you, tomorrow they judge you. Today they support you, tomorrow they abandon you. If you go through life trying to please everyone, you end up betraying yourself. And that betrayal is slow. It doesn't happen all at once. It starts with small renunciations to what you like, to what you think, to what you feel. You stop saying what you think out of fear. You stop showing who you are out of insecurity. You stop living for yourself and start acting as a reflection of what others expect to see. And all of that, in the end, turns into anxiety, frustration, a life that feels alien. Stoicism invites you to break that chain, not with childish rebellion, but with integrity, with clarity, with the conviction that your worth does not depend on external voices, but on the consistency with which you live your life. It's not about becoming indifferent or arrogant. It's about reclaiming your freedom. Because freedom is not doing what you want. It's being able to be who you are without fear, without the need to fit in, without always justifying yourself. And that requires courage. Courage to disappoint, courage to let them talk, courage to stand firm when the world wants you to bend. Ask yourself this: how many important decisions in your life have been marked by the fear of judgment? How many times have you stopped doing something you wanted just because someone might criticize you? How many times have you betrayed yourself to maintain an image that doesn't even represent you? Living like this is a form of slavery. One that is not seen, but is felt every day. And the only way to break it is to confront it. Understanding that others' opinions do not define you, do not construct you, do not belong to you. They are just projections, noise, and you cannot build a life based on noise. The next time the fear of "what will they say" paralyzes you, remember this. People talk out of habit, not out of truth. The world will always have an opinion, but you decide whether that stops you or not. Break the chain. The silence that follows your authenticity is worth more than all the applause for pretending. 4. Stop dwelling in lands that no longer exist. There are people who live in ruins, not physical ones, but emotional ones. They walk daily through the rubble of a past that is no longer there, as if they could rebuild something that long ago ceased to exist. They inhabit memories as if they were houses. They cling to moments that have already passed, to people who have already changed, to versions of themselves that no longer exist. And while they do that, real life, the only one they can touch, slips through their fingers. The past is like an ancient city that has already been abandoned. You can visit it, you can remember it, you can even learn from it. But you can't live there, because all that remains in those empty streets is nostalgia, guilt, or resentment, and none of those things give you peace. One of the biggest mistakes we make is to believe that reliving what has already happened will give us answers. That if we think enough about what we did, what we didn't say, what we lost, we will understand something that will heal us. But Stoicism teaches you that it's not about understanding the past, but letting it go. Because understanding doesn't always bring peace, but letting go does. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you that destroys you, but your interpretation of what happens." And that interpretation, often, is tied to the past, to an unhealed wound, to an image that repeats itself over and over again, to a mistake you can't forgive yourself for. But let's be clear, you can't live the same day twice, and you can't change what has already happened. The problem is that many people live in repeat mode. They relive scenes in their mind as if they were movies. They return to the same point over and over again, as if staying there gave them some kind of control. But it's just an illusion. The more you stay in what was, the further you move away from what can be. Leaving those lands is not easy, because there is pain, yes, but there is also attachment. Sometimes there is even comfort, because the known, even if it hurts, gives a certain security. The future is uncertain. The present demands presence. But the past is already written. And there are those who prefer to take refuge in what they already know rather than face what they still don't understand. Stoicism proposes that you live in the present, not superficially, but as an act of inner strength. It's not ignoring the past. It's accepting that it has already fulfilled its function, that you don't have to keep going over it, that your worth is not in what you did wrong, nor in what was done to you. It's in what you decide to do now, with what you have today. Ask yourself this with brutal honesty. What part of you is still trapped in a story that has already ended? What situation do you keep reliving as if changing it could give you peace? And how many opportunities have you missed because you keep looking back, waiting for something that is not going to return? Living like this is not living. It's stagnating. It's repeating the same suffering with different excuses. It's dwelling in lands that no longer exist, while real life waits for you to return. Breaking with this is difficult, but it's necessary, because inner peace is not found in rewriting the past. It's found in letting it go. So if something inside you keeps going back to those places, remember it strongly. You can't build the present if you keep dwelling in ruins. Stop living where you are no longer. Stop dwelling in lands that no longer exist. 5. Stop fighting against the river. Learn to swim. Some bodies look firm on the outside, but inside they are exhausted from so much resistance. They live tense, with a tight chest and a fast mind, as if every day was a fight against an invisible current. And it is, not against the world, but against life itself, against what they cannot change, against what did not turn out as they hoped, as if fighting with everything was their way of existing. Life is that river that never stops moving. It comes with its twists, its blows, its moments of calm and chaos. It doesn't care about your plan, your mood, or your excuses. It doesn't stop for anyone, but instead of learning to move with it, many people wear themselves out trying to control everything. They cling to the ideal of what life should be, and that desire for control is what sinks them the most. Stoicism teaches you to distinguish between what you can handle and what you can't. That distinction is vital, because if you don't make it, you spend your days fighting useless battles, hoping that others will change, wishing that the unfair becomes fair, pretending that life works under your conditions. But life doesn't negotiate. The river doesn't retreat just because you refuse to move forward. Seneca explained it clearly. We cannot direct the wind, but we can adjust the sails. That is practical wisdom. That is knowing how to swim. It's not about giving up. It's about being smart. It's about stopping using your energy on what overwhelms you and starting to focus on what you can transform. Your attitude, your response, your approach. The problem is that many confuse giving up with accepting. They believe that adapting is losing, but it's not. Adapting is recognizing that you don't have to control everything to have peace. That letting go is not failure. It's maturity. It's understanding that clinging to what no longer serves only delays your growth. Have you ever stopped to think about how many times you have been exhausted from fighting against what you could not change? How much pain did you accumulate by refusing to flow, by insisting that things be different? How many opportunities did you miss by being focused on resisting instead of moving forward? Every day you choose to fight with life is a day you do not live in peace. And yes, there will be difficult times, dark days, news you didn't expect, changes you didn't ask for. But all of that is part of the river, and if you don't learn to swim, you're going to sink in your own rigidity. Inner peace comes when you let go of that need for absolute control. When you understand that you are not here to dominate the world, but to traverse it with the greatest possible serenity. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you aware. The next time you find yourself frustrated, feeling like everything is against you, take a pause. Don't put yourself in a war position. Don't close yourself off. Observe, breathe, adjust your direction. Remember that there is strength in flowing. There is power in adapting. And there is wisdom in letting go. 6. Let your silence weigh more than 1,000 words. Some thunders sound loudly, but they don't bring rain. They just make noise. They just seek attention. On the other hand, there are silent storms that completely change the weather without needing to announce themselves. That's how true character is. It doesn't need to shout to make itself felt. It doesn't need to prove anything. It speaks without saying a single word. In an era where everyone has an opinion, reacts, posts, and argues, keeping silent has become an act of rebellion, but not of cowardice, of power, of control. Because anyone can raise their voice, anyone can respond with anger, throw hurtful comments, defend their ego with hollow words. The difficult thing is to restrain oneself. The difficult thing is to measure each word and ask oneself, does this build or just make noise? Silence is not absence. It's strategy. It's strength. It's the language of those who no longer need to prove who they are because their life speaks for them. It's not about being silent all the time. It's about knowing when to speak, when to intervene, when a word can have an impact, and when it simply becomes part of the noise of the world. The impulse to respond, to defend oneself, to correct others is natural. We all feel it, but if you live under that impulse, you are a slave to your emotions. Speaking without thinking, speaking impulsively, speaking out of pride, robs you of energy, gets you into conflicts you don't need, and takes you away from the inner peace you're so desperately seeking. Silence, when it comes from control and not from fear, is a brutal tool. It allows you to observe without reacting. It gives you clarity. It makes you notice things that most people overlook because they're too busy talking. And it reminds you that not everything deserves your attention. Not everything deserves a response. Think about it. How many times did you say something just so you wouldn't stay silent? How many times did you regret having spoken too much? And how many times could you have avoided problems if you had simply breathed and let silence speak for you? In many cases, silence is more uncomfortable for others than any word, because the one who keeps silent does not expose themselves. They don't stoop down. They don't enter the game. And that unsettles those who live off conflict, reaction, constant provocation. But for your silence to have weight, you first have to work on your inner self. You have to know yourself. You have to stop talking just to fill voids, just to seem wise, just to feel like you have control. Because if your silence comes from fear or insecurity, then it's not power, it's repression. The difference lies in the intention. When you choose to be silent because you know that your words are not going to add up, you're winning. When you choose to keep silent because you understand that the moment doesn't deserve it, you're growing. And when your presence conveys more than any speech, you're on the path to true strength. You don't need to explain everything. You don't need to justify every decision. You don't need to respond to every criticism. Silence is not only defense, it's also attack. It's also dignity. It's also peace. Let your silence say what your words can't. Let your presence have weight. Let your gaze speak with truth. Because in the end, words are forgotten. The impact remains. And true power is not in saying a lot, it's in saying just enough, or in knowing when to say nothing. 7. Don't buy what can't fill your void. There's a moment in the day just when the noise dies down, where there are no screens, no fake laughter, no distractions. It's just you, facing that silent space within you. And that's where it appears. That void. It doesn't physically hurt, but it weighs. It's that feeling that something is missing, even though you have everything. That for some reason, you can't be at peace, even though nothing serious is happening. Most people don't know what to do with that void, so they disguise it. They cover it up with purchases, with distractions, with shiny objects that promise satisfaction, but fade as soon as you hold them in your hands. You buy clothes you don't need, technology that doesn't change your reality, experiences that last seconds but leave you just as before. All of this becomes a desperate attempt to fill a hole that can't be filled with things. And the worst part is that the system knows it. It thrives on it. It makes you feel insufficient so that you buy something that makes you feel better. And when that effect wears off, it throws another product at you, another trend, another artificially created need. It's an endless cycle that consumes your money, your attention, and most seriously, your time. The real trap is not what you buy, it's what you think you're buying. Identity, value, belonging, happiness. But none of these things come in a box. The inner void is not filled with objects. It is confronted. It is understood. It is healed from within, not from the shopping cart. Stoicism makes it clear, what you need to live well is already in you. Tranquility, direction, strength. But if you're looking to complete yourself through the external, you're only moving further away from your center. Because the more you depend on something outside of you to feel good, the weaker you are. The more exposed you are, the more trapped you become. How many times have you bought something thinking it would make you feel better? And how long did that feeling last? What came next? More emptiness, more need, more purchases? It's not a coincidence. It's an emotional addiction disguised as modern consumption. It's a silent escape, and the most dangerous thing is that it's normalized. Because everyone does it. Everyone buys to not feel, to not think, to not look within. But inner peace is not bought. There is no offer, no store, no app that can sell it to you. It is built when you face your loneliness without fear, when you dare to observe that void without running, when you understand that you don't need more, but less noise, less distraction, less desire to pretend. This doesn't mean that you can't enjoy material things. It means that you can't use them as an emotional patch, because that patch always breaks. It always falls off, and then you're forced to run for another one. We need to learn to be okay with less, to value silence, to embrace calm, to understand that the simpler you live, the more space you give to what's important. So before your next impulsive purchase, ask yourself an uncomfortable question. Do I want this because I really need it, or because I want to escape from something I don't want to feel? Don't buy what can't give you peace. Don't chase what can't give you direction, because in the end, the void is not filled with things, it's filled with meaning. 8. Don't let them poison you with a smile. The most dangerous poison doesn't always come in a dark bottle or with a skull on the label. Sometimes it comes wrapped in sweet words, kind gestures, and perfectly rehearsed smiles. It's subtle, it's invisible, and for that reason it's lethal. Because while you let your guard down thinking you're safe, that poison begins to take effect, slowly, from within. Not all the people around you want to see you well. Not all compliments are honest. Not every close presence is company. There are those who approach not out of love, but out of interest. Not to help you, but to manipulate you. And they do it with surgical precision. They know what to say. They know when to appear. They know how to disguise harm as care, and if you're not awake, if you're not firm, they catch you. Betrayal doesn't hurt so much for what they do, but for who does it. Because it comes from someone who was supposedly with you, from someone who claimed to want the best for you, but Stoicism doesn't teach you to distrust everyone. It teaches you to see clearly, not to be carried away by appearances alone, to observe actions, not just words. To judge the substance, not just the form. A smile can be a weapon. A kind gesture can be a strategy. And if you let yourself be carried away by the superficial, you become an easy target. That's why inner work is not just for dealing with yourself, it's also to strengthen your boundaries. Not to give your energy to those who don't deserve it, not to justify those who hurt you just because they did it with good intentions. How many times have you tolerated attitudes that wear you down because you didn't want to seem exaggerated? How many times have you felt that something isn't right, but you ignored it because the person was nice? And how many times have you allowed yourself to be manipulated by disguising control as affection, criticism as advice, or envy as concern? That poison is more common than it seems. It's in relationships where they make you feel guilty for setting boundaries, in friendships that feed on your weakness, in environments where your growth bothers. And the big mistake is thinking that as long as there's no direct conflict, everything is fine. But sometimes the war is waged in silence, and inside you're losing. It's not about living with paranoia, it's about fine-tuning your perception, listening to what you feel when you're with certain people, paying attention to how you leave a conversation, with more energy or more drained, with clarity or with doubts, with strength or with guilt. Don't let someone emotionally poison you just because they smile while doing it. Don't confuse courtesy with sincerity. Don't confuse closeness with loyalty. Learn to withdraw without making a scene, but with determination. Learn to close doors without needing to shout. Learn to choose who you share your peace with. Because if you're going to protect something, let it be your tranquility. And if you're going to fight for something, let it be for the right to be okay with yourself. Far from drama, far from manipulation, far from those who pretend to care while poisoning your essence. Not everything that shines is light. Not every smile comes with good intentions. And not everyone who approaches deserves a space in your life. Thank you for staying until the end of the video. If you watched the whole thing, comment, "I am Stoic," as our secret signal to know that you're a true student of Stoicism. Don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like if you enjoyed it. See you in the next video, and remember, keep cultivating your Stoic mind.